Okay, we'll kick off the meeting. We'll get started. Hey, great, excellent. All right, so as I said before, we're at a hybrid event today. So obviously here at the Oracle building, and thanks very much for coming in. Much appreciated. Not as many as we had hoped. So we did have 22 registered. You never know. You drive in, people's schedules change, and maybe they actually flip to online. So we have obviously everybody online as well. Thanks for attending. This meeting is sponsored by NetGain. So that's great. Thank you very much for the sponsorship. And we'll hear from Chris a little bit later. And let's go through some of our agenda for today. And by the way, my name's Mark Tanner, so co-chair for the NetSuite Ontario NetSuite user group, or as we like to call ourselves, ONSUG. It's not a great name, not a good marketing name, but it does spell out what we do here. So I'm just going to do a quick little welcome, and then I'm going to actually go in as a little review of SuiteWorld. Darrell is going to cover the on-air experience. So a few of us were at that SuiteWorld in Vegas, and it was a great experience, and we'll go through some of that. Then we've got NetGain, our meeting sponsor, with Chris. Gavin will cover off some of the NetSuite 2023.2 features, and then we're going to flip to tips and tricks. So, and actually in some of the SuiteWorld's presentation that I have some tips and tricks in there, and I can actually do the demo in Danby's environment as well, if that helps. Okay. And I'm actually going to do this one on behalf of Lisa Reed, who's our ONSUG treasurer, who is vacationing in Cancun right now, so will not be with us. And then obviously, afterwards, you're free to mingle, let's network. This is what it's all about. So, and this is what we want the user group to really be all about is more, we're back in person. Let's make some of those connections. Let's talk about our experiences, here and also online, and our entire membership, which I believe is above 120 members now in ONSUG, which is fantastic. It's doing that matchmaking and sharing experiences, sharing some of the knowledge. If you're trying to implement something with a certain partner, does anybody else use them? Has anybody else got some tips and tricks on maybe what to do or how to solve a specific problem as well? So right now, the only form that we really have to do that is here in person, as well as our LinkedIn profile. We do have that as well. And I would love to start up maybe a lunch and learn series too, where it's maybe kind of an open mic type thing. Just come with any questions that you have, any topics that you want to discuss, and we can just discuss as a group and team. So those are the main avenues right now. All of these meetings are recorded and on our onsug.org website as well. And so you can go back to Gavin, when was our first presentation here? We were talking about that. Is it 2016 now or something like that? And we've been recording them ever since, and they're all available on the website under the member area. But and again, we're here to share information. If you have tips and tricks and you want to share or post something in the member area, you just talk to any of our board members. So let's get right into a SuiteWorld recap. And the only thing I'm not going to actually recap is the keynotes, because I think a lot of people probably logged in, saw the keynotes, saw the messaging, and that in the keynotes is great. It's inspiring, but it's usually feature. So it's not here yet. I like to talk about what's here now. What can we do here now within NetSuite? And that's kind of what I'm going to gear towards. So they celebrated 25 years of NetSuite, and it was either the keynote or one of the breakout sessions, it said 3,000 customers in Canada. That's quite a few customers just within Canada that would maybe have unique things from the rest of the world. And that's why we have this user group as well to talk about some of these unique things. And, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is taxes. We're a little bit different, but we're a lot simpler than the US. But a lot of Canadian companies also sell into the US. So how are we doing that? How, as a Canadian company selling into the US or international regions, and how can we help each other in some of those areas? So the theme was Suite Up. 7,000 attendees. It sold out again, which was fantastic. I can't believe the facilities can handle that many people. You should see the tent and the food. I should have taken a few more pictures of just the amount of people and the logistics that it can handle. But Vegas is like that as a conference town, and they've been doing it for a number of years, and they're definitely professionals. Some of the key themes that we heard was definitely AI. What are we doing in AI now within NetSuite, and where are they heading? We saw a little bit of that. Where we are now is a lot about insights, and they're going to bring more of those insights into other records as well. Also heavy in supply chain. So the predicting of out of stock, slow, not going to make an order, or ahead of schedule, and maybe you can slow things down. So a lot of different insights and key metrics within supply chain that we saw and heard. A bit of a focus on 360 views. We've got the customer and the cash view, but there's more dashboards that are coming. Gathering this more information on the dashboards, I think that's definitely powerful. I know at Danby we have item 360 built in right on our dashboards as well, and that is slowed down the number of sales reps asking our sales support people, what's in stock, when is it coming, how many orders are there, what's our ETAs. So that's fantastic to see some of these views coming into NetSuite. Enterprise Performance Management, the EPM, a lot of focus around this and a lot of drive for new. Account reconciliation, close dates, getting closer closes, tax, and narrative reporting as well. NetSuite Capital was announced. I don't know if it's available yet. Don't know really anything about it, whether it's US based only, but it is an offering. NetSuite Pay, we heard, is more a US based offering today, but I think they want to bring it to Canada. I know as Danby, we're taking a look at NetSuite Pay right now as well, and what it can bring for our environment. And I thought this was an interesting topic because I didn't know that there was compliance around electronic invoicing. That is a new one for me. Of course, we're doing electronic invoicing now. Is it certain countries? Is it international? What are those compliances? What do those mean? That's kind of on my to-do list to research, but I found it interesting that it would be in kind of a keynote and a theme there as to what that was all about. So why attend SuiteWorld? Well, it's a great place to network. You definitely do not get that opportunity besides going to regional events where you may meet regional employees, but meeting NetSuite employees like worldwide, some of the product management team, the marketing team, and obviously the ACS leadership there too, is a fantastic opportunity. Networking with partners as well at the exhibitor forum. I don't know how many exhibitors were there. I didn't get a count, but it was well over 100 different booths to go through and interact with a lot of the partners, and most importantly, customers. So you get a good opportunity. You sit down in one of the sessions, you chat with your neighbor, you have lunch, you have dinner, you have breakfast, you chat at the table, and you understand a little bit more about other NetSuite customers, what their challenges are, what's going great about NetSuite is a question that I like to ask. The live breakout sessions is very different than on air. On air, pretty scripted, right? Sometimes pre-recorded, and it's a video that we watch. But the live sessions have a little bit more interactivity. There's a good Q&A, there's good discussion, and you get some of those other stories that you may not get through a video situation as well. So I get the most out of actually the live breakout sessions at SuiteWorld. I mentioned the partner exhibits. I call this like NetSuite Solution Land. We've got in the exhibitor floor, they've got this whole section, like a quarter of the floor, all built for different solutions around NetSuite. And sometimes I kind of avoid that because I think they're pitching certain things. But then I started talking about like one gentleman that was running interactions or the connectors. And we started talking about, oh, this is how you do it with Shopify. This is how you do it with WooCommerce. This is all built in. What can you do? What can't you do? And he's very, very knowledgeable on a wide number of things, which really surprised me and led me to other conversations and a pretty good detailed explanation on how I could do a few of those things. It's important to get out of our day-to-day, and even today. So our attendance is not what we expected. People get caught up in the day-to-day. So it's good to get unplugged from their day-to-day, go to SuiteWorld, and that's what our focus is for the next 3 days. I find that and getting out of the office leaps me forward on what things I want to do and get to within NetSuite that, from in my day-to-day, I just don't get there. So there were, I think I attended about 12 different sessions. I'm going to highlight a few of those where I learned the most about NetSuite, things that I didn't necessarily know. And you might laugh, it's like my first one, deep dive into the dashboard design. Well, everybody probably knows dashboards, probably seen sessions on dashboards. Probably, there's not a lot. I've been on NetSuite now. We're in our 4th year. So we've got our dashboards pretty figured out, pretty locked in as to the users. But I go there just for 1 or 2 things that, man, I didn't think of that. That's a pretty good idea. So there's a few things I'm going to take out of this. I don't go through all the slides on these presentations, but I want to pull out some of the important key messages. So there's a Suite Answers, the 9911 is all about permissions, and not just with dashboards, but it explains permissions throughout NetSuite. But it's really important that you have a good handle on permissions when you're launching dashboards, because if you're launching it to a group or a role, you have to make sure that that role has permission to see everything on that dashboard that you're going to view. And when you get into the mud on that, if you have custom records, custom lists, and all of that, you've done specialized permissions, there's good areas to watch out for. Find a middle ground on your dashboard, and they had two funny pictures. They had, you're a minimalist. You have maybe 2 portlets on your dashboard, and that's it. It's kind of out of the box, right? It's pretty blank, and not many people put anything on there. And then you have the extreme where it's like I'm flying jumbo jet airplane, and the cockpit has everything on it, and all of these gauges and everything to do. It's too much to handle. It's too much information. I don't need it. So find a middle ground with some good advice as to just do enough for that user role. Okay? The next thing was the navigation portlet, which is an add-on. It's I can't remember if it's a bundle or whether it's a Suite app, but you add it and it gives you a good view. And we can look at this afterwards, but there's a bunch of shortcuts depending on what your role is. And it's very easy to add new shortcuts within that. So why do I think that that's pretty good? Well, recently I've had some departments say this shortcut is what I use all the time, but all of my users have to add that as a shortcut so that it's in their environment. Well, I said, yeah, or I could republish dashboard, but republishing dashboard wipes out everybody's customizations on the dashboard. Also not a good solution. But in the navigation portlet, I can put a shortcut on there and everybody sees it. So in that entire group, and it drives them to use that, which is a really good tool right on your dashboard to kind of navigate around NetSuite. Another thing that I saw that was good in this presentation was a help portlet on the dashboard where they had links to all of the training guides for that company. So everybody has SOPs, maybe you have a QMS system where you're following work instructions. Well, link those work instructions, put them in the file cabinet or an external URL if you want, and then put those links right on the dashboard so it's easy for people to go and see and do. I thought that was a pretty neat one. And another tip was the Suite Builder. If you're installing bundles and you type in Platform Solutions Group, you see all of the free bundles that could be installed in your environment. And I thought that was pretty cool as well. I took a look and there was like 40 of them, and some of them I had installed and some I hadn't. And then you look at the number of installs and it's like there's 40,000 in this one and I don't have it. Well, what is everybody else doing that I'm not? So I should take a look at that and maybe install it in my environment. So those are a few little key takeaways on that one. The other was this, we've got a new field, right, on our saved searches, new formula, HTML. So, and if you haven't converted your your formula text that uses HTML formula in that field, you have to update it because it's broken now, guys. If you're on 23.2, it's no longer working, and you move to this new field. And I went to this one, and I was a little bit blown away with the creativity that that some people have around what you can do with this field. And if you're a pretty good HTML coder, or you go through the course to learn a little bit about HTML, or ask ChatGPT, gives you pretty good guidance as well on HTML, you can come up with different things that you see on the screen here. All of these little boxes is a field within a saved search. And what they've done is put it's a fairly big, complex formula into that one field, and it generates like a little card of information, which is a much better view. And then take that and put it on a dashboard. You're now getting away from looking at some people's dashboard. It kind of looks like looking at Excel. You have grids and tables and you're just scrolling through things. But why not have things like a little card, like say in the bottom left there is about the customer and what their balance is and information there, and do they need to update or something? Is there a field missing on that account? You can do some pretty fancy things in there. We'll go through a couple of examples, but these are other wow things that they're showing. One thing that you may or may not know, you can do progress bars in NetSuite as well, which is pretty cool, right there in your saved search. They've got a few different examples of progress bars, and then they've got another one in the back. Top left is kind of the cards as well, but that's a saved search result. And you see 4 different columns there, but look in each column, it's pretty customized and it really stands out. So if you need things to really stand out on a dashboard or saved search, and these are really good ways of doing it. And by the way, I'm going to share what this course was and the code name, and you can get it from Suite Answers, and they have the code that actually did this in there as well. So here's a couple of other examples. I like this one on the left. So this is recent opportunities for them, and it's one column in a portlet, because if you put in portlets and put a saved search in the portlet, you know that there's a limitation on the dashboard to, I think it's the first 6 columns you can see. And then you have to, zoom into it to see all of the rest. Well, why not take more of those data points instead of it being 12 columns, squish it into 6 and put 2 bits of information in one field. That's what they're doing here, is basically squishing 7 fields into one line of code on the saved search. It's pretty neat. Here's the information card, and you can see all of the different kind of components to this one. Here, and I won't go through all of this, but there's some great tips that were in the PowerPoint as to where to go. So what are some HTML editors that you can use? What's the quick overview? So why do you use the double quotes? Well, that's for concatenating within NetSuite, in HTML. Know your field IDs and start to learn a little bit about SQL expressions as well. And there's some great sweet answers there. And you guys will, I'll be putting these slides as well onto our site afterwards. So might be a little bit hard to see, but this is the code that generates the card on the left-hand side. So, and it looks pretty intimidating, but once you take a look at small pieces of that code, it starts to make pretty good sense. It's like, okay, I'm taking that field ID, and then what do I want it to do? I want it bolded, so I put a bold around it. Okay, I want to change the font. Okay, I put a font around it. I want to change the colors, put a color around that field. So you're kind of building up your HTML as you go. And then this HTML code is actually in an editor, and then you copy it into NetSuite. And I think I might have some of that like here. So these are, say, 3 examples of a sales order link, a sales order button, and then edit the sales order button as well. So I thought that was pretty unique. I like the button idea. And actually I implemented it, and I'll show you guys at the end in the tips and tricks how I did that. But each of these are just unique code. And when you look at a simple example, it starts to make some sense. This is just HTML around, again, the field ID is the internal ID. And then you're just formatting outside of that. Embedding some record links in summarized searches. If you've done, say, a transaction search and you want to give them a link to the actual item on that transaction line, you can't really get there. So, because you've summarized it, it's a transaction, it's going to take you to the sales order or whatever that transaction is, that record, and then you have to go to the item and stuff, or you copy and paste the item and put it in a global search and find it. Too many steps. You can just put a button or a link directly to the item that it's talking about, even though it's a transaction save search. Huh? You know, it's a little bit confusing, but some of the ideas are pretty cool. This is the code here that does that info card up above. So, and again, if you look at it, so just look at, say, line 2, right? And that's the customer name. I'm telling it to, have a certain header on it. And then right afterwards, it's the opportunity title. I'm changing the font size and I'm creating a style and stuff like that. And, I think once you get this down and you know what you want to display and how you want to display it, then it's just a matter of interchanging fields, which would make it much easier, I think. Okay? That's some pretty cool code that we can copy and paste and learn from, right from this presentation. So this is talking about that the portlet column limit. So up above, you can see all of the information there in the save search, and then down below is how they took that information and rearranged it in a different way, and then made it just one simple line, okay, with 4 columns instead of how many do they have up top, and they probably had a few more as well. Won't necessarily, well, this one was pretty interesting too. So this is I think it was a customer search, and they made a link to all the transactions for that customer, which is that transaction list that you see in the middle column at the top is calling another save search. And the code behind it is just, it's the save search and it's the ID, and then it's passing whatever internal ID is being used on whichever line they click on in that middle section up here, okay? Up here. And you can see it up top here as well, like the actual code. So the internal ID, and then they're setting the actual search ID as the search ID for the transaction list. You're following me. So it's 2 different searches really embedded within one, but it gives you a better drill down moving forward. So, you can scan the QR code, or again, you're going to have this presentation. I give a link directly to the Suite Answers where this um, presentation was. Okay, but again, that was on the new formula HTML column. I thought was great. Anybody implemented CRM within NetSuite? Anybody using? Yeah, yeah, great. We started to as well, and having been on NetSuite 4 years in, and the data was all over the place, and we didn't have a good concentration of contacts to customers and the right marketing towards that, and then who is actually reading some of our Danby advertisements. So we're trying to plug all of that in, but I thought this was a really simplistic view of leads, prospects, customers, and how they travel along with opportunities, estimates, and sales orders as well. I thought it was pretty simplistic if you are trying to implement something like this within NetSuite, understanding the actual flow that NetSuite offers, let alone like instead of building CRM into NetSuite as something unique and new. A few of the tips and tricks was, and I didn't even know that this was here, was quota management. So you can set your quotas, which is different than, say, budgeting and forecasting. So set it down to the rep level on the actual quotas, and then you have more monthly reporting right within NetSuite using some of the and we'll see the Suite Success bundles that are right there. Here's a sales rep dashboard and what it would look like. I thought it was a couple of good ideas on this one as well. Just a good use of different gauges, different KPI measurements, and how it's laid out. I like that. It was a pretty good screenshot, and they borrow some of those ideas. Sales manager view should be different than a sales rep view. And it should be a separate role as well within NetSuite. And so their view similar, but again, it's looking at all their employees in the roll up, and getting that correct within NetSuite is sometimes challenging, but if you do everything by the employee and just a kind of sales rep supervisor role, then you kind of figure that out. I won't go into this one, but these were a few good ideas on Suite Analytics and within the workbooks, and all pre-set up as well, and some of those key KPIs there. Intelligent recommendations is something we have not dove into, but I pulled this one out because it's kind of like one of those hidden things where it may be really good for some organizations. So, and how does the AI analytics, because NetSuite says the AI behind it is kind of driving what some of that recommendations are they the right ones? Like at Danby, you can say buy a fridge, and you can buy it in 6 different colors. What if we're out of stock on 3 of those colors and they were looking for that particular color? Well, we should be suggesting one that is in stock, same price, available now, and ship it. So some of these things, it's harder for us to go and look at all of those models, but I think an intelligent recommendation should just pitch it there for the sales rep that's either on the phone or looking at the sales order and know what other products to suggest right then and there. I'd love to be able to bring this to our website as well. As an example, we just built our portal, which is all backed in by on NetSuite using the My Account, and our customers can now go in and check our inventory. But we wanted to not stop there, because driving more of our customers away from email conversations and phone calls and connecting with a sales rep puts us a step further away from a customer. So we wanted to put, say, Google Analytics or tracking. What did the customer look at? What items were they looking at? And feed that information to a sales rep to say, have a conversation with John about these products that they just looked at on our website. And then maybe we can have a better conversation, because if they've left and gone elsewhere, or they couldn't find the information, or we were out of stock, then how do we connect those dots? Well, I think these recommendations would also be another tool in the toolbox. You're looking at a SKU, did you also look at these three? So, and do that proper suggesting, which is pretty complicated, but I'm hoping NetSuite has some good basic rules to set up and guide the AI to what we want to suggest to a customer. Last sales activity, that's a Suite app. You load it in, but it gives you a lot of information on all the transactions as to what's that last activity and tracking last activity, which is really important in CRM, right? When was the last activity with a customer, and track that as a date. And if it's been too long, alert somebody, right? Call that customer, reach out. Suite Success CRM add-on. I just asked our ACS rep about this one. I didn't get an answer yet, but seemingly we do have access to another Suite Success bundle that can be installed all around CRM. And I was more interested in the lower right stuff. Is there's Suite Analytics workbooks right out of the box for helping a lot of the things that I'm trying to kind of invent, if you will, through Save Searches and doing other things. But I'd love to see out of the box, what did NetSuite build for this? And then just tweak it for our needs. Did you know if you use the mobile app, like the iOS or the Android app, NetSuite app on your phone, you're on a customer, and then you place a phone call through that. So basically clicking on their phone number, it will log an action in NetSuite and put it under your customer or your contact record. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Gavin knew that. All right. I thought that's pretty darn cool to have that right within, because to try and figure that out, do it by VoIP or somewhere else, and it's complicated. But if you just can do it through this, it saves sales reps from double entry. Like my manager says, I need to log the calls as well. Just do it through the app, and it does it for you. It's fairly easy. Excellent. Good. Yes, you should. Tips and tricks. All right, so that was that one. Let's move on to the next one. Was SuiteScript, and create it through AI. Just wanted to see, are other people doing this? I know I've been doing some of this through Save Searches and using ChatGPT for, correct the Save Search, or how do I write a Save Search about this, and or a formula. Maybe it could even do my HTML call that we showed earlier, or build this HTML code that will look like this. So a very interesting session, and they went through 4 steps. So learning, prompting, debugging, and refinement. And in learning, so can you ask, and what kind of prompts can you get back to learn about this stuff? I want to write a SuiteScript. I'm not a programmer. So ask it. So how would I go about using SuiteScript to track users who viewed a transaction? So they made this fairly straightforward. What's the difference between a user event script and a client script? Comes back and explains it very simply. Walk me through how to upload and deploy a SuiteScript file in NetSuite. Gives you the example. So without knowing a whole lot about it, this has given me, okay, this is aiming me how I can do it. It's not necessarily all the code for it. And then let's start with that. And I had to not include the excerpt that they're referring to, but in ChatGPT, you can refer to certain articles. So it knows, in this context of this article, apply what I'm asking you to do. And that was like about SuiteScript and stuff that they're referring to. So that's kind of how you approach. So can you, with this approach in mind, create a user event script using before load function, as the excerpt suggests, referring back to this, that will deploy a client script on an order. The client script should get the current user's name and put it into the body memo field on the order with a timestamp. So ChatGPT comes back with that, and if you've ever used it, usually your first prompt is not your answer. You have to ask it again. Or you say, well, that was a good suggestion, but it erred. You give the error code. It's very polite and apologizes that it got it wrong, and it's going to try its best to rectify. So it may take quite a few to get there. And in this one here, they're refining the code. Like in the last one here, this version of the code, the new memo from user edit, blah, 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 copy and paste. They want it in this format, last viewed by user. So it's a little bit more friendly. And it just responds back with, okay, change your code to this. And go ahead and do it. So what they're talking about here was the next step in refining is when you have some of this code and it's built, put it back into the prompt and ask it to explain it. So like, or in this case, it maybe took me 20 prompts to get to the answer that's actually working, right? So ask ChatGPT to build this code, what should I have asked for in the first place? So then it gets you better, gets you learning how to interact with the AI in a more efficient way. So it's telling you here in this, it's saying, you should have asked, right? Suite script using NetSuite's version number as a user event script, and in the script, import a record, log, runtime modules. So that's including a lot of things that maybe a non-programmer wouldn't know to ask, but it's kind of coaching along the way. We won't go through it all, but it's a really good way of learning and coming back to it. So this session was interesting. So the first presenter was a non-programmer. They're a NetSuite admin, and they know about Suite scripts and kind of know what a user is asking for. And then the second half was a developer. So did it do it right? As a developer, would I write that differently? Was it good code? What's the best practices? So he walked through a few things, commenting and summarization, optimizing, and best practices. And in this one, he just asked, okay, that was good code, but there's no commenting in it. They don't know what's going on really. So a good developer comments while they go in the code. But not all developers do that. Or I'm not going to comment until I've got the code actually working, right? Because why comment everything and then I might be removing this and replacing it and all of that. You can place your code into the chat and ask ChatGPT, send this back commented. And the developer loved that actually. And he said it was super accurate as to, explaining what it's doing. And there they showed some of the code before and after. They then asked it to, okay, summarize it. So summarize it for easy reading. And it came back as to all of these sections of code and explaining exactly what it does in a little bit more layman's terms as well, so that a non-developer could understand what that code is actually doing. And I went through some of this, and it's actually quite excellent. The next step was, okay, what about performance? So it chose in the script to, when you go and grab some of the data about the transaction, and all you want to do was get the person that touched the transaction, it grabbed all the fields of the transaction and pulled it back into the script, and then only used the last edited by. So that, when you simplify it like that, it sounds like a waste of resources, right? Why do I need to get everything off this transaction? And then I'm just processing one field. Instead, use what's called, I think, inline edit approach, where it's tactical. I just want to grab this field off the transaction. Just give me that. And it's much, much faster. So you said writing, so beware if you're going to do this, that it may not be the best practice for a performance. Okay? So then he asked, again, the code was there. Show me how I can optimize what you just did, what you wrote, improve it. And it came back with all of these different suggestions on what to do. And it's quite long. Actually, this one went to 2 pages. And then it gave a summary of the recommendations. which basically gives the developer, okay, I'm going to like hone in and maybe do these, 5 different things to make this a better sprint. So I thought that was all very interesting. And again, best practices are, if you're going to do this and you're not a programmer, get the code in front of a developer first before you put it into production. That's kind of the fine print maybe on, use this with a little grain of salt. And you do that anyway with any information that it's given back, right? Like, that it might be true, maybe not 100% true, right? Because it's learning from the internet. So, and it can only do what it's being kind of taught to do, if you will, or learn to do. Okay, so that was the Suite script creation using AI. A couple of others, and I got these slides. They weren't actually on Suite answers, but I do have slides for both of these last 2 sessions. This one was on SuiteFlow or workflows, and I thought it was excellent as well. They had a really good AR example of, yes, you can automate the sending of an invoice, but can you trap and pull back how many bounced emails that email got? So is it getting to your customer? It didn't. How did it? You can set up the alerts for this invoice is overdue. And you can set it on, say the day that it's due, and then 5 days after, and 5 days after that, and then maybe on the 15th day, it's like, alert somebody. Well, you can track that through a workflow and have those increments. And you can even, in their example, they track how many warnings does it take to get this person to pay? And is it consistent? I always have to, by the 3rd warning, then they pay. So track that information so then you can have good conversations with customers that are maybe not paying on time, right? And what is that cycle? Does it need to change? How do we rectify it? How do we get better at it? I think that alone was really worth sitting in on that session, just thinking that thought. And then they gave the whole workflow to us in that presentation on how to actually do that within NetSuite. It was actually really straightforward and well done. So that was the report on the number of reminders from a customer. I'm going to save that one for the next one. But scheduled workflows. If you are having scheduled workflows, make sure that it's a scheduled workflow using a save search, but make sure the save search that it's using isn't supplying too much data back, because the more data is in that save search, and every time it runs, it pulls this huge amount of data back in the save search to check conditions. Shrink it by time, by data that's returned. Make sure that save search is super optimized and runs super quick, because it will give latency on other things. Execution logging, turn it off after your workflows are working. Turn off the logging. I'm guilty of this. I did a lot of workflows at implementation that I never turned off the logging. Because when you have so many, it's hard to go back, and maybe you want some logging because it could go wrong. Just trust it. Turn off the logging. You get an error, turn the logging back on. But that logging creates huge load on the system eventually when it gets too large. I did not know that. Okay, and absolutely load the APM search as well. Okay. This one was excellent. And if you're at the lab, that was last week, Vinny, he spoke. He actually opened the lab for us on the first one. I think he was going to try and make it today as well, but I don't see him. He did a session on peak performance, and I thought this had a lot of really good wisdom and really good tips. And these were actually in my notes. I didn't get the slides until a couple of days ago. His slides are also not in Suite Answers. So if you need that, I can ask him if it's okay to forward to anybody that asks. They had a really good words of wisdom. Use NetSuite for NetSuite. And I wish I had this when I was back in implementing, because when you go from one ERP to NetSuite, you want to make the user experience as close to what they had, right? To what they're going to get. And some of that is it's rules, it's naming conventions, it's I had this field. I don't see this field in NetSuite. Okay, we'll add it. And then you have what I'd call maybe a bloated NetSuite experience where things are slowing down. Things are a little bit more complicated. It's hard to understand what's best practice that NetSuite had when they launched NetSuite, or you get NetSuite out of the box. What's the bare bone experience supposed to be like? Because I bet you it's a little bit more refined than what you get after a big implementation. So I thought that was really good advice, so much that they wanted to print that on some t-shirts and actually walk around. Use NetSuite for NetSuite. That was a good saying. So don't build a system within a system. So I think we get caught with that because NetSuite is so easy to customize. So easy to add custom records, workflows, scripts, and everything else that you customize so much, but try to step back and just do what NetSuite can do best. Clean up your file cabinet. Don't let it get too big. I think mine has grown tremendously. One word of advice, we're doing the OCRing on our vendor invoices now, and each of those get stored in the file cabinet. Depending on how many vendor invoices you're doing there, it can get pretty big quickly. Do you need to keep all of that? And the more that you use CRM, and I love it, people are using the CRM now, but now they're attaching everything to the customer record, all these attachments, the emails going back and forth. We use it for cases as well. We have consumers sending in pictures. Hey, my fridge isn't working, but here's a picture of my fridge. We save all of that on the case, and now my file cabinet is massive, so much that I had to upgrade to another tier because of the size of my file cabinet. Shame on me. I should have had a good flow through on that to remove things from file cabinet and archive them, put it into some other storage, still make it online, but maybe a bit disconnected. Move things to non-real time. So use a I don't think that he said specifically. He said, I think they were leaning towards, the more data you have, the more you have to go through. So keep things a little bit more lean. Like even opening some of my folders in the file cabinet takes like a few minutes to open because it's tens of thousands of attachments that are in there. So I think from a performance, it's got to affect performance at some point. Right. Right. No. I wouldn't think so. Nope.
Can you just restate those questions or that are being asked?
Yeah,
We
sorry.
can't hear them online. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, Stephanie. So Gavin was asking, like, is it really affecting performance? Changing that with the file cabinet. And we're thinking it's probably not.
Gotcha.
Affecting performance. It's probably affecting retrieval, and depending, usually with the file cabinet, you're not retrieving much, you're filing away, right? So it's more of a one-way action, and I might need it later. And when I need it, it's kind of a one-off. It's not your daily process. So I think that kind of answers as to will it affect the performance? But it made it on the slide. So in their presentation. So move things to non-real time, like batch, map, reduce as possible. Be thoughtful on your integrations. So I'll give an example. We use EDI. I have 92 trading partners. We do a ton of transactions every day. Should I rethink how my outbound is? So say I get 1,000 orders a day through EDI, which I do. And we outbound back to our, like say a Costco, and we say, okay, orders shipped, here's confirmation, here's the tracking information, all of that, right? Back through EDI, and we do that real time. So as it processed through and marked shipped on our IF, then we send the EDI transaction. So and with that EDI transaction, it's about 3 calls to NetSuite, gather the information, send it to the customer. We do that real time. in peak season, when we're trying to ship maybe 8,000 orders in that day out of one of our facilities, that could be a huge load on the system. Think differently then. Can we batch that stuff? Can we do it after hours? Can we do it at night? Can we do it when the transactions aren't really happening? I think that's some really good advice, is to think of things that you can kind of offset. Like on implementation, we thought, oh, this is great. It all runs super fast. And then we didn't think of, okay, at our peak season, home comfort, everybody's buying their air conditioners. We have too many transactions. After a long weekend, we're trying to process 8,000 orders through. It bottlenecks, and no wonder things are slow. We have it all real time. I think it's all great. But think of those peak times and maybe either have a switch and do it like thoughtfully, or do it now. So even when it's low peak season, it just happens that way. So I thought that was, again, really good advice. Transactions updating multiple times. And for the life of me, and I've opened a few support tickets on this, but if you look at a transaction, say a sales order, and you look at the system information, something is updating our ship to addresses many, many times. Even though it's a simple order, the ship to address has never changed, but something is touching it. Something's causing some system information to update. So what is that? Where is that? Try to dig in and look for that, where things are updating that they're not necessarily true. And I think it's a third-party application that's outside of NetSuite that when it calls it, it pulls the data and it thinks that it needs to update it when it's not updating. That's my gut feeling, but again, look for these things. Let's skip this, a couple of these ones. I talked about the turn down things during peak season. Sandbox. I always found it backwards. My sandbox gets updated to the latest revision of NetSuite after my production is on the latest version. And yes, I get a release preview and I can see things there. But the release preview, yeah, it's a copy, but it's very hard to connect my third-party stuff and get real good testing for the release preview. You can request your sandbox to be updated to the latest release before your production. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could actually do that and make that request. So again, really good little tidbits of information. Consolidate your subtabs. Anybody have a ton of subtabs on their forms and it keeps going off, especially if you have third parties? Trying to consolidate, try and bring those back. The less scrolling across a user has to do, I think it's a better experience as well. Build special purpose forms. They gave one example of a customer that just could not get sales order entry speed down. And I have this problem as well. They wrote a different sales entry order screen, still web-based, but outside of NetSuite, and then it just feeds into NetSuite. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's almost like you're creating an EDI transaction ahead of time, but try to do things outside maybe instead of within NetSuite. If a client or a customer is having that issue. Rush, you had a question? Yeah. So I don't know. So I think it's actually in the slides where it said that. So the question was, how do you get the sandbox schedule changed? I don't know. I think you may have to ask your account manager to get that, and they'll set ball rolling. Yeah, I think that was the advice. So with your sandbox, it's usually updated after your production is on the latest release. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't happen. What I remember will happen like a week or something. Exactly. Automatic. Yes. So the question is, how do you get it to refresh before so you can do proper crash testing, load testing, all of that before production gets updated? Okay.
they'll do it. But I think there's two conditions. You have to be within the release phase, obviously.
Yes.
Phase where they get everybody updated. Like all customers going down updated if you want to use them. They do it in phases. As long as you're in the phase, you can get it updated. And once it's updated, you can't refresh after. Refresh it.
It's gonna override it. Right. Okay. Okay.
But
So
basically, if you do a support, it should be doing it for you now. If not, I think you're automatic to it.
Okay. Okay. So just for those on the phone, so the advice there is raise a support ticket, request it, know that you're within the release preview stage, and then request it, but then also know that you can't refresh your sandbox again after you've had that your new version refreshed. Yeah. So you probably want that window as tight as possible, I would think. You're doing some last minute testing on it. That's good. And then if support can't help, try your account manager. All right. All right. There's one other thing on this that I wanted to cover was after submit. So after submit in your workflows, very bad. Try to avoid it because it essentially reopens. So you have a workflow, you have the after submit, you save, say, your transaction, and it goes through, does all of its functions in the workflow, then it hits the after submit, and then it reopens that transaction, does whatever you wanted it to do after, and then resubmits it again. So it's kind of a double submit. So try to avoid that. That's going to give performance. Try and do things while you're still in the transaction, not after it's saved. And it would be a better experience for the user, because I believe if you've got that in your workflow, your refresh of the transaction won't happen until all that other stuff is kind of happened as well. So even though it's an after submit. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, I had a couple of slides here just for fun. Vegas is always fun. I had a great hotel room view of the Sphere, the new Sphere there. And actually, I went to the U2 show one of the nights and got a really good picture of the Sphere up close and as the emoji character. And then you can see on the top right, being Canadian, of course, there's some hockey going on there. The Stanley Cup champions from last year. I had to go see a game. And I tell you, I think I was 12 rows off the ice there for what I would pay here at the Scotiabank Arena for the nosebleeds, right? It's like under $200 for 12 rows off the ice. And get to see some pretty good hockey, and the
price of love is always too cheap.
There were some shots there where you could have sworn you were outside. And they had one view as if you were looking at downtown from the Sphere. So it was like the wall was transparent. And it was just incredible. Incredible technology that they put in place there. All right. Yeah, and that's how they ended the show. I thought it would be neat for you to see, kind of like what it looks like inside. And these seats at the side, when you're looking like from where I was, I don't even see them. So the panoramic view kind of brings it inside a little bit, but you don't see them in your peripheral vision at all. All you see is forward, which is amazing. I bet. So, and use it somewhere else. Yeah, use the power elsewhere. Yeah, and their speaker system is in the back, like it's behind you. on this big, huge wall. Like, otherwise you don't see any other speakers in the whole entire place. Just incredible technology. Darrell, do you want to take over? I can stop sharing, and you've got a few things on the air.
Sure.
Maybe harder to hear Darrell here for us, but it's just going to probably go through my speakers here.
Can you hear my voice okay there?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have too many slides. Unlike the deep dive that Mark did onto actual content, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the on-air experience for users that couldn't actually make it to SuiteWorld. So, of course, if you have the budget and you have the time, there is nothing compared to going to SuiteWorld. As Mark mentioned, networking, the programs do a more deep dive. There's more content, as well as the huge advantage of questions and more interactive. That aside, though, Oracle NetSuite has done a great job of growing Suite on Air. First, of course, and foremost to mention, it is completely free. So everyone here should have signed up for it, even if you had gone to SuiteWorld. Simply that you can access this content. And I'll mention right away, today is the last day to get the content. So if you did not take advantage of signing into, Suite on Air, you can still sign in today and still get one last view of some of the content. This content was available on demand afterwards. So while some of them, they weren't available until the actual scheduled session, you could go back and replay them at your, heart's content, rewatch it, or, whatever time fits better in your schedule. So this is the third year now of SuiteWorld on Air. The first year they ran into a lot of issues with sound and video. The quality was very poor, and it was actually very difficult to really watch some of the presentations. The second year they sort of got through that mostly solved, and there was a lot of issue though with actually joining sessions. A lot of sessions were sold out. There wasn't capacity. You couldn't get there. Well, by year 3 now, they have got it all together. It worked very, very well. The interface was excellent. The sound and video quality were perfect, and there was no issue of getting into actual sessions. The overall planning, you could really go book your sessions, fill out your schedule, one simple clicks to join them. So they had very, carefully built this out, and clearly they're going to keep going with it in the future. So as I mentioned, this is completely free. So if you're expecting to get the same content that you do of being in person, it's not quite the same. Some of these are very much more overviews, but they can be excellent if you are looking into areas of NetSuite that you have not implemented, products you have not purchased, or just somewhere that you just don't have the experience. So many of these sessions are very simple, but they do go through all the basic features, which can really help sort of lay the groundwork for you. Again, especially when you can, you're dealing with new subject matter, you can pause, you can replay, you can look back. All right. If you're looking for something more like the sort of the experience at NetSuite, and being there at actually SuiteWorld, what you want to look at is what they called workshops. So there were several workshops available. These were much more similar to what was in person. Several of them were all done and built by Russell Cull. And if you've ever get a chance to actually see him present, he is absolutely outstanding. He's one of their senior principal educators, and you can see why. He just immaculately walks you through details, especially if you have not yet jumped into Suite Analytics and are looking at the workbooks that come pre-built and pre-made that you can use and then actually build out. His one workshop, the Reporting 30,000 Feet Overview, was extremely excellent in the way that it was laid out and guided you very step by step. Even for basic users that have never gone into let's say, a pivot table or SQL queries or getting into advanced reporting, he made it effortless and very seamless to sort of jump in here and start to utilize this in your organization. Again, there were several other workshops, an AR close, an AP close, again, that really help you dive through and make sure, are you using, in a sense, everything that you have paid for? Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to go into deep content on some of the sessions. This was more looking at the interface. So like I said, after 3 years, they've really got this down well. If you're not able to attend in person, I really recommend for next year, you do sign up, you take advantage of this content. Again, it's completely free of cost. It's available on your timeline, on your schedule. And it really does add value to your purchase of NetSuite. So really, that's all I wanted to add today about the Suite World on Air. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mark.
Great. Thanks,
So,
Terrell. Thank you.
Just an update, our sponsor unfortunately has run into technical difficulties today, and he'll be sending along his presentation that we can share with the group online as always. But he just wanted to pass on that he was very happy to sponsor today's event, but unfortunately he will not be able to present.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Thanks, Terrell. All right. That moves then into Gavin. So our sponsor again was NetGain. I think Gavin can maybe say a few words about NetGain as well. He has a relationship with them. Okay, Gavin. You want to share? Will I stop sharing?
Sure.
Yep.
Plug back in.
I would, yes. You want to join and okay, just give us a second here, folks. Give your email up, Kevin. Or send it to your email. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Reshare. There. Yep. It was there. Yep.
This one? Okay. Unfortunately, this isn't going to take very long, I don't think. So I'm going to talk about the new release highlights. So hopefully you all have the new release portlet on your dashboard. Just to give you some insight as to how this goes together, because I used to put this together when I worked in NetSuite. And so there's the idea is to group features into different themes. And so those are the themes along the bottom. There's a lot of thought put into what those themes are and what they communicate. And even the graphic, there's lots of debate even with Evan and Gary and team about what the graphic looks like and what it's communicating. So sometimes there's hints in there about other things to come. But this is the main way that they try and communicate new features. Unfortunately, there's not as many features. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So I'm going to share what our as in TrustScore, our approach to evaluating all new applications or features. And we decided that to actually apply the same criteria to NetSuite products because there's fewer core NetSuite products that are coming out now. So our preference is for anything that's designed in core NetSuite or on the platform. And then our second preference is what they call hybrid suite apps. So that's something that there's an outside app, but they also build some functionality in NetSuite. And then the middle one, which is the blah one, which is anything that's just a third party and integrated. So this is our preference is for anything that's built in NetSuite, core NetSuite, or on the platform. So anything in the Suite App Store, and then hybrid maybe as a second choice. So when you look at the Suite App Store, if you look at a partner solution, there would be like a built for NetSuite thing, and it says integrated, hybrid, or native. Interestingly enough, NetSuite do not grade their own Suite apps using this method. So we'll talk about that a bit too. So yeah, so that's basically our preference is that. So I kind of put integrated apps, so NSAW, which of course you're all being pushed, you're all hearing lots about. Technically, it's an integrated product. It's basically an Oracle product, and NetSuite's built integration to it. To their credit though, they have in the new release, you can actually manage users, in NetSuite. So I think it's migrating more towards like a hybrid tool, and you can now put the NSAW dashboards in your NetSuite instance, but you still have to be an NSAW user, or you can't see them. So that's my biggest issue with Analytics Warehouse in general, is the licensing, and not just Analytics Warehouse. This applies to almost all analytics platforms. Power BI is the same way. You can't see the graphs unless you're a Power BI user. So I'm not really interested in a selective analytics platform. If you're going to have something that's an analytics platform, I want it to be available to anyone at any time. So that's just the way that we look at it. So yeah, so we for anything built on NetSuite, anything built in the platform, to me that's the same thing. We talked about we're going to have NetGain present today. So we use NetAsset. We've looked at NetClose. We'll probably eventually do something along those lines. We're implementing Adaptive right now, so we've already got a bunch of other things. We've got too much going on right now, but eventually we'll probably look at some kind of close system as well. So the thing I like about NetGain, Chris Miller and I work together at NetSuite. I also worked with Adam, who started NetGain. So pretty much everything they build in core NetSuite. They use custom transactions extensively. So little ad for netgain, even though they're not you. So this I scoured the internet for recommendations of the new features, because I feel I have a very narrow view of what the top new features are, being manufacturing guy. This transaction line distribution, this was initially listed as vendor line distribution, I think, but they renamed the Suite Apps transaction line distribution. So have a look at that on the Suite App Store. I'm going to show you hopefully in a second the Costed Bomb Suite App, which is a big improvement. Item 360 is, I think, getting better. You said you've used it, right? I still struggle with it a little bit, and sometimes you have to pick a subsidiary, but I know that's because of they're limited by the way that the NetSuite architecture is. I just wish that some of the analytics worked a little bit more consistently, etc. But it's a good step. Smart Count, I actually presented on Smart Count at SuiteWorld. So this is the cycle counting app. It's not perfect, it's getting better. And so now now it'll use GS1 barcodes as well, which is what we're using. And so basically it's really nice tools. You can do you can have it plan counts, you have multiple searches to define what you should count. And each search you can give it a reason. So you can say these are my high activity items, or these are meant to be counted today because they're time to be counted. Or it could be a fast moving, a search that defines fast moving items. I have a search that shows items that we think we're going to be short of because we have more demand than supply, and so we can go and have somebody count those proactively before we run out of them in production. And so when you open up the app, you can actually filter by what you want to count. And when you count it, you can see what the reason why it was counted based on the safe search that you define. So it's got the mobile app, which is really well. We actually found that people will use the mobile app just in the laptop, the UI, so it doesn't have to be a mobile app with a scanner. And it's got really good tools it's got a great dashboard for your finance team to review the count and accept it. They'll go and do the adjustments. We had a problem initially because we have mandatory departments set, and so it wouldn't do the actual inventory adjustment at the end of the day because we couldn't set the department. They fixed that as well. So big fan. I think it's good. It's getting better. So definitely worth having a look at. Then they built a new work order traveler report as well, Suite app that that's eventually going to replace what's in NetSuite. And we don't think we would use this. We don't have enough volume yet. But there's a rebate and trade promotion Suite app. John Beck that I used to work with, he's been working on this for years, it seems like. And it's again getting better. So if this is something that you do, it's definitely worth checking out. You must do a lot of this, right?
Yeah, I am.
Right. Yep. So I think you may have to pay for it. I'm not sure, but I can put you in touch with John Beck if you want. But yeah, that's on the Suite App Store too. So it's again built on the platform. So John would be happy to talk to you all day about rebates and trade promotions. So I'm not an expert in it. I know that this is like the third incarnation of this, I think, that NetSuite actually built. And it seems like this is the most comprehensive one to date. And so I would at least go and check it out. Other new top features. We're not using this. I'm thinking of using this Ship Central feature eventually. So all of our actual products are shipped or as full truckloads, so it wouldn't really work for that. But we do ship out a lot of samples, so you can order samples through Amazon, and those will be fulfilled by a third party. But we also won't have sample. You can go to our website and just request samples, or reps can request samples to be sent to the customers and stuff. So we have someone basically all they do is ship samples all day by UPS, FedEx, whatever. And so we're looking at integrating the order process. I'd like to build like a sample store, like a online sample store, and have the orders just go in automatically. Right now, we're either rekeying orders or we're importing orders from Amazon or whatever, so it's a little messy. But if we get to doing that, I'd love to use Ship Central for doing the rate shopping and creating the labels and all that sort of stuff. Right now, they have to log into the UPS site or the FedEx site and do it that way. We've been talking about our close process and account reconciliation specifically. We looked at Blackline. We looked at NetSuite's account reconciliation tool. And then we get sidetracked with Adaptive because the tool we were using was not working all of a sudden, and we had to put something in place. And our CFO worked with Adaptive before, so we pretty much went with Adaptive. Eventually, we'll come back to that. It's basically just the Oracle tool, and they built integration to it. So we felt that the account reconciliation tool looked very similar to what Blackline had, and we thought they both looked like shit, to be honest. So we're not really that interested in them. But you know, that's just us. I know there's a whole, what are they calling that whole? NetSuite World, they announced like a whole thing, and so it's reconciliation and bill payments and all that sort of stuff combined. Bill capture, AP automation, etc. But again, I don't think the bill capture or AP automation even works in Canada right now, so might be limited for us. And then guided learning, I want to like. It's again a third party. It is technically a third party tool, but it does work in NetSuite. So basically, it's like an interactive assistant. So if you get a new employee, they should be able to log into NetSuite and it will say, "This is how you enter a sales order," and you can actually program it to do your own the way that you enter sales orders and etc. as well. It just feels like it's a lot of work. It looks great on a demo, etc. It feels like it'd be a lot of work to set up and maintain. So you looked at it, didn't you? Yeah. And same thing. Yeah. Yeah, liked it. Talked about the analytics warehouse again. You know, might be worth looking at. I don't like it for just because of the licensing limitations, but they are making it better, adding more metrics and that sort of thing. So might be at least worth considering. At least they're updating it. And then I thought this was funny. I looked at in Suite Answers for what NetSuite was recommending in terms of highlights, and this was it. So if you look at everything on here, so account reconciliation is an Oracle product. Guided learning is an Oracle product. Ship Central is a NetSuite product that is integrating to a third-party shipping tool. The bill capture, I think is NetSuite, but I think it's using Oracle AI. So the only thing that's on here that's actually built by NetSuite is the supply chain manufacturing mobile app. So I've spent a lot of time talking about what they're actually working on. I can't do that. Oh, Mike's not here. So if you want to know what they're actually doing, then I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. Seeing this is being recorded, I don't want to incriminate myself, and I'm probably still under NDA. So, okay. So I want to see if I could actually show you the costed bill of material feature. How do I stop sharing? Stop share. Okay. See, share. Okay. So, you see that okay? Okay. So, So the costed bill material feature is a Suite app that you just install. It's free. And so when you install it, you go under reports, cost accounting, costed bill materials. And before, so there was a costed bill material report before, but only worked in standard costing. So now you can basically go in and you can say, pick your subsidiary, pick your item. Pick that one. And then your location that you want to get the cost for. And then so it'll bring up the default bill material. We're not using revision control at this point yet, so that's fine. Our standard bundle size is 150. And then you can choose to either have top level only, or if you have sub-assemblies, it can break it down. And then you can do, this is basically average cost for us. This is kind of weird. This is the last purchase price, or the last receipt cost. I think it's actually just the last purchase price. So you gotta be careful with that, because we tried, when we were testing this, we were testing both, and there was a couple of times where one of our big costs is we have custom skids that are made, and we just bought some refurbished ones that were like 25% of the cost. So that wasn't great. But basically you can go and pick now your bill of material, your location, give it a production quantity. We're not even using routings, we're just using the bill of materials right now. And then hit submit, and it will go and eventually give you a nice little summary of, so here's your total cost for 150, your cost per piece. So then here's all of your components. So we have the labor built into the BOM as overhead items. So it's showing you the cost for each. And then what's nice is you can either download it to Excel, or you can email it, and it'll actually go and send an email to you and whoever else you specify with the Excel spreadsheet on attached to it as well. So what we've been doing was, when we were doing testing, was I'd download this one, and then I'd do the per purchase price one, and then download that one, and use it for that. So far it's worked pretty well. So my buddy Jerry built this, so I was a little bit involved in this before I left, so it's nice to see that it's actually working. But so far it's working great. Our challenge with it right now is that it's not a challenge with it. This works fine. We want to do, we're putting together standard price books basically for customers. We want to run like get cost reports for all our products, or product types, I guess, or like a product matrix, and figure out what our costs are for all products for a customer. And I can't get to the location specific cost. Suite Analytics only gives you the item average cost. And for us in Calgary, like our biggest cost component is that one of the biggest cost components is this guy, which is the compound. And in Calgary, let's say it's cost like 80 cents a pound, because they actually make it there. Here it costs us $1.20 because we buy it. So it's using the dollar average cost, which doesn't really, it kind of helps us, but it doesn't help us know in terms of if we have a big project we want to ship from Calgary versus Palmerston or whatever. So that's our biggest issue in there. But other than that, it's working pretty well for what it is. So questions? No, just part of it's out of the box. Yeah, we're not even using routings. We're just using bombs, and it works. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Oh, that was for Analytics Warehouse. So now you can connect multiple NetSuite instances together into Analytics Warehouse. So so we have one instance with multiple subs. If you have multiple instances, now you can connect multiple instances to the same Analytics Warehouse That's right. So, okay, back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, so do a bit of a time check. We've got about 20 minutes left. All right, so tips and tricks. So as I said at the start, Lisa Reed is our treasurer. She put together a documentation and on tips and tricks that she uses and share her background. She went on vacation, yes. And her background is more on the finance side and dealing with transactions and stuff. So that's not my forte, but I did go through her document and I think I understood the majority of it. Let's see if I can find that document. This is tips and tricks. Yeah, that showing up okay? Yeah. All right, so yeah, bear with me because I've only gone through this like kind of once yesterday. And but there's some excellent tips and tricks on this, and we will share this document out as well, or put it in our onsug.org. She talks about first, transaction searches and remembering to include posting or non-posting transactions, because what's a non-posting transaction? Sales order, right? As an example, as opposed to invoices. So criterias, posting, yes, no. If you want to gather up information among all transactions in NetSuite, that's a good way to define it. Use your main line, both yes or no. Whether you want your header, yes or no, on the detailed line level. Tax level information or tax line information or shipping line information. So set those to no. Otherwise, you will get some duplicates and other data there, depending on what your transaction searches would come back to. And she does a reminder there that journals do not have a main line, that you have to use the line sequence number equals 0 to get the main line equivalent. You can also, this is item fulfillments, I think, work the same way, that you want to set your line sequence number equal to 0 to rule out, I don't even know what you call it, but line level information that just doesn't pertain, right, to the transaction.
One item that I would found was combine everything else to make sense, but you're
Yeah.
that that's not the main line is a really important one. You guys know you're looking at the header or all the detail. Most of the time, I was always looking at the main line as best from the header information, but as I said, it's not that there's no package that we post they all mean what they say, but main line will
I totally agree. Totally agree. And what John's saying is really make sure that you understand mainline and how to use it, when to use it, and use it properly. Like when you talk about main line, sometimes in my head, I'm thinking line level. So main line, well, my main line is down at my line level. It's not. Main line is header. Yes, you want it, or no, you do not, or you want a combination. Yeah. That great. Absolutely. Can really change your searches quickly. Important formulas that she uses in transactions. So first one is like a net amount. And you can see in her formula, she's using an NVL. So if that's a null value that's coming back, then substitute it with the comma 0. Okay, so that you're not getting, if it came back with like a null value, your whole formula is kind of out, right? But you may want a negative. If you've only got a credit amount, not a debit amount, then it will show a negative in this case. Okay? So make good use of this NVL in your formulas. But net amount, net foreign amount, obviously adding the FX, And for us as Canadians and looking at US dollars, I'm forever looking at both, right? So, and some departments at Danby want to just see, like our quality control people, they don't necessarily care about it's in a US dollar or Canadian dollar. They want to just compare it to a combined amount, Canadian dollars, because then that's the easiest equivalent, right, on total value, rather than have a combination of US dollars and Canadian dollars in your search results. So definitely may even want to include both of your fields in some of the saved searches that you have, so that you have a consolidated amount depending on who's running it, and then the actual subsidiary currency as well. But this was an interesting one. Make the transaction date like a standard date to be, say, August-23. I think this is a finance thing, or it's a report thing where it's easier to read, right, on it. But this is the formula to do it. Use your two char and set the values on month and year as well. So good tip. Entity is in different columns when journals versus vendor bills. And I ran into this myself as well, doing some of the finance save searches where you want to return the right information, but it's in two different fields, and your reader of the results doesn't want to look at two different fields, combine it into one with a case statement. So it's good advice. Transaction searches. So, and in this case, it's what bills are paid and with what bank. So I think this is a basic save search here with the main line is false on the bill payment. But then she added in the results what the case would be that it does not equal 0, then use the account main, else use the account. So that's where she's combining the two into one. Looking for inconsistent transaction dates versus accounting periods. So I think this is where she goes hunting for bad data, as in finance, they often do. And here you can see some of the criteria there. And note that formula, she's using a case statement and setting it either to a 1 or a 0 there, or based on the year. Does it match, right, with the posting period? And when it doesn't, hey, we need to know about it. Okay? Which is why she's doing 0, which is the else statement here. So ignore any of the posting period years that match to the transaction date. Details of customer deposits on accounts. You can see again, the criteria is very straightforward. Where she gets a little complicated here is the way she's showing the information. She has it twice here, so it's easy to copy and paste versus a little picture. So here's the unapplied versus the foreign unapplied, and there's your formula to calculate that. I thought this was really good, and I want to copy and paste this into another document, almost put it on my dashboard, as I look at this a lot when I do save searches. When to use applied versus applying records. I always second guess myself. So having a simple chart like this with the purchase order and like the applying to is work order, but the applying transactions are your IF, and your IR, and your vendor bill, and your return. Sales order, again, invoice, cash sale, pretty straightforward. Vendor bill, purchase order, and then you've got your bill payments downstream. And then you can read the other ones. But I thought that chart was excellent. I thought that's really good to just set things straight, especially if you have somebody new maybe in NetSuite. Good idea to have that. And then again, the fields will not show up if the main line is true. So again, make sure that it's set properly there. Here's the next example on that. where she's using the FX amount minus the applied to transaction FX amount. Doesn't equal 0. So I think, again, she's trying to find data in their system. And she's using this again down here. It is interesting trying to get into Lisa's head from a finance point of view as a third party and reading this through. Discrepancy between bin on hand quantity versus on hand quantity, where you have discrepancies. And I think this is pretty specific, and she does and helps with a lot of post implementations. So I'm sure she's seen this many times, that she wants to bring this up as a tip, that when you've turned on bins after the fact, there's a certain sequence that will help with some of the errors of doing that. So she's saying, firstly, lock down your accounting periods to prevent users from modifying any item fulfillments or item receipts and all of that. So your go live date is on bins. Finding the issues. So she's got a standard case here, and an item search is, when your inventory location equals the bin on hand location, then one else, like we want this situation and find it where they're equal. She's got it set as a max type, and then another equation looking at the max location quantity on hand versus the sum of the quantity on hand in the bins. Does that equal, not equal? You're looking again maybe for some of those discrepancies in those numbers before you turn on the system and you're live, or if you're midway, clean up some of the issues. But she lists off a lot of this right in her document. Looking for items where the bin is not specified on the item record. We run into some of this, orphan products, some bin put away that's not done correctly. These are good save searches to have alerts to just keep inventory clean. And she's got a few examples here. And again, it's like your bin number equals your bin number. Is it equal? I think here she's just giving out a few different formulas that she uses in her results on that as well. If you wanted your total ordered, available today, balance after the PO, then these are simple formulas to just reuse. And I think she reuses a lot of these in the customers she's dealing with as well. So good to have. And notice again, she's using that NVL. I think that's a really good practice. It's an easy way of, it's easy to forget to use that, because you just start adding fields into your formula and you forget to put your null values in. And when you do that, you can mess up some of your formulas and return values. I thought this was an interesting one. And I guess, yes, in finance, they look for an exact transaction amount, how to find it. She thought it would be easy to find it in the transaction search off your dashboard, but it's not really. You can't really find it. So she's used a save search where she would use a formula like your amount is, and then put that amount in your formula to actually find the transactions that match those numbers. So it's, and I think you can take that save search and then put that on your dashboard to make it easier to find. I think that's where her thought process was going. And I think she was literally thinking this one through right to the very end, because she sent through this document through, but not the solution. And then I think when she was in Cancun, she sent the solution an email saying, okay, add this. And she had it kind of solved. So, okay. So we'll thank, Lisa for putting that together as always. And, we will make this document available so that you can just copy and paste these into your best practice documents as well. Okay. Any questions on that or anything that I need to go back up to? Is it? Okay. Oh, good. So we'll make sure to get you this document then. Happy it's useful. Great. Okay. So on the tips and tricks that I was going to do, that's Lisa's, top tips and tricks. I was, and I'm prepared to go through a few of the ones where, you know, my Suite World presentation there, I talked about a few different things. If you want, we can do that and see a few of these things live. I think I can do that live. Let's see. Just log into my NetSuite account. May ask me for authentication. That's practice, right? Especially when you are traveling and going online from a different location. Have your multi-factor. And this should bring up a bunch of different tabs in my NetSuite environment here that I've prepared to show you guys real quick. So the first one was the navigation suitelet. So in that navigation suitelet, let me go to my dashboard here and I'll show you first. That load. Okay, so here's my navigation portlet and I'm in as system administrator. And what I did was I added this field impact analysis and just a side thing that this is a solution from StrongPoint. They were a Canadian company out of Toronto. They were sold to a US company. Now I think they do everything out of the US, but some awesome tools. This one is by far the best. Impact analysis, I can put in my ID of my field and it returns back every save search that it's referenced and using any reports, any scripts, any workflows, any forms that that field is on. So that gives me a good overall view of my NetSuite environment. If I make a change to this field, I'm impacting all of this. So, you know, really good to know at times. And I can't tell you how many times it saved me from, we've done something in the system. We can't figure out what it was. What script was updated last night by who or whatever. I just put that in and I can see all of that information. So very cool. Yeah, Rush. Thousands of scripts it installs. Yes. Right. They were not a requirement. So for compliance or whatnot. And the other question was, did it impact our environment? To my knowledge, it didn't. So we implemented this a year after we had gone live, and we didn't see a change in our environment. But we saw a gain knowing what's happening in our environment. Like there's other things that StrongPoint has many tools. We don't use them all. There are some really good compliance things there where you can check in and check out code. You can have an approval process for when your code goes in and your changes go in. It has another tool to, simple one, you've added custom records or fields and you put 0 help in. Give me a list of all of the fields that have no help for our users and then start to clean those up, right? So some neat and unique tools from StrongPoint. This field impact analysis is my #1 by far used. Yep. So how did I add this? Well, I went into the NTS navigation shortcut name list because it wasn't on my list. Maybe I should show that first. So, oh, great. Maybe it didn't load up all of my tabs like it normally does here. Give me a sec. Okay, so we have all of the categories here. So you have your navigation category list here. So, and you can see that, okay, navigation portlet, here's my area. And if I went to like the system admin stuff, here's the system administrator stuff here. And I wanted to add it, I think, under the system tools. So if I go and add it to the system tools, here are all the URLs and the shortcuts. And then you can add a new one. There are some on this list, but not all. So a lot of the native NetSuite tools are already there, so it's easy to go and add. But when you can't find it on there, you have to add the shortcut over here, shortcut name, and it's really just a simple, you just add the name. And then you can find that name in this list here. And you can see field impact analysis. I gave it the URL. And I set it as a role here that only administrators can use this one. So just as an added security and benefit, things to add and think about is the role. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, easy. And then there it showed up on my dashboard, and now it's under this one. So you can do that for any of them. So your accounts payable and what the main set up your transactions. If it was missing a transaction here that's important, then add it. Okay? And then you get your users using it. But also notice here's reports. So frequently used reports. You don't have to shortcut all those reports. You don't have to go through the menu, all of that sort of stuff. It's very it's much easier to use that benefit. Sorry, I should have opened up all of these tabs before, but it probably would have timed me out anyway. Just take a second. Okay, this is a save search that I used in the HTML coding. So, and you can see here, I've got the item record. So if I just click, so these are all of items, but this save search is a transaction save search. And it's telling me the sum of my quantity, sum of invoices, number of customers. You can drill down by clicking on any of these group fields, but it doesn't really give you a true grouping, right? When you go and look at those summaries, it's not a true listing, and it certainly wouldn't give you just the item record that it's talking about. So you can create this link, and if I open it, it just opens up the item record. Well, let's take a look at this search and how I did that. And just for confidentiality, I did put a little bit in the criteria. I think I put, oh, it's not in this one here. I think I put something in. That's weird. Anyway, it wasn't showing, or not supposed to be showing, over 1,000 products sold. So just keeping some confidentiality. Here's the HTML format, and here is the code. Pretty straightforward. I think it's pretty easy to understand with the HTML. Then I'm inserting the item internal ID into this. So, and look at this URL that I'm hitting. It's the item ID. So it's the item record that I'm returning to. And then I just throw this in brackets as button, and close the button, so that this, whatever this item record shows up, it's in there. So I could have actually put the item record in the button as well. But I just chose to do item record. So very, very straightforward. Pretty easy to do on that one. Next one. The setup manager. So I thought this tip was pretty good. Like if you go in the setup, and if you were doing enable features as an example, right? I'm sorry, not all over. Setup, company, enable features. It's sometimes hard, and you got to scroll through everything. Like, where's supply allocation? I can't remember which tab to enable that feature. If you were to click on just the setup on your tab, so I go here, and then just the setup managers, the screen I'm on. And in this search, I can just type in, say, supply allocation. I'll hit enter. And it tells me it's in company enabled features, items in inventory. And if I click on it, it just loads it. It loads that entire area, but when I scroll down, it's highlighted it in red for me. So it's not something that you do all the time, but if you're helping out others and turning on features or tweaking things, it's a good little tip to find. Okay, let's see what the next one was. I've got just a couple more for you. This was around dashboards. So I hope you know how to create other tabs. You can create a custom, sub tab here in your environment. So I created one called Danby Save Searches, and I've got tools up at the top. Easy to just find a new save search. See my save searches. There's the item 360 I threw in there, and then I group things by department on great save searches that those departments should be using. But if I clicked on just this, Danby Save Searches, it gives me a dashboard. So on this dashboard, I can add portlets. I can do certain things on this one and customize it as well. So I put a little portlet, my save searches, so it's easy to find all of my save searches under my name. And yeah, look how many I've got. 1,541 save searches in the system. So quite a few. Too many. And you can just edit the custom tab here. And under portlets, this is how I did it. So I can go ahead and I can add, if it was appropriate, a KPI indicator. And this gives you a whole other listing of portlets and stuff to use on a dashboard. That's not your main dashboard that has, you can only add so many, right? You can only add say 6 custom searches. So kind of a neat thing there. Okay, let's see. Oh, that was me just showing it. Just did that. Okay, I think this is our last one. Yes. Okay, so I've been in one of the sessions where they talked about put it on the dashboard and put links to documentation, right? Your SOPs or your work instructions. So I wanted to take it one step further, and I thought, why not put it in an inline HTML field right on a form? So on this one, here's my tasks that we've just launched our CRM, and not everybody launch it, but hopefully everybody gets trained on it, but it's hard to get everybody trained. If you need to learn more about task management, click here. So and I think it'll just take me there. I may have to log in and stuff, but it takes me to our Danby University site where this is a small little course that we put together on task management within NetSuite and how to use it. Just go back. So task management, course description, what's the content? There's a couple of videos for them to watch. So it's linking appropriate help from a form within NetSuite. I thought that was pretty cool to do, and actually really easy, easier than I thought. There's a couple of key learnings on this one. Okay, so this is my field here that I created. It is an inline HTML, and then on the display, I have it on the main sub tab. My validation. Here is the HTML that generates that line with the link of here targeting our SharePoint site and our Danby University site. So pretty easy to just go and point it externally. Okay. There's one other thing that I saw on this. Insert before. So this insert before, it switched back for some reason when you load this every time, you have to maybe be a bit careful. But on this insert before, usually I haven't used this before because it really doesn't work for a lot of things. Like if you insert it within a section on a form, you still have to go and move it on the custom form. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you say outside columns at the top. So that's how I put it on the task outside of the normal form up here right at the top. And then I highlight it yellow. Make sure it's like really visible. Go do your training. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. So that's something that I would like to do with more forms, like proper SOPs. So Gavin, this is kind of like your guided learning, how you just talked about guided learning, and then putting it right on the form. Right. Well, you still have to build it, right? You still have to build your little tutorial and stuff, but putting it right into a user's face, like right here on the screen, I think is pretty beneficial. So, and like say, I wish I could customize, say, the new save search form, where those finance formulas that Lisa showed, and then have a little document just looking for those shortcut formulas. Here, click here and it brings up the form, right? That would be super, super cool. Not there yet, but we're getting there. Okay, so those are all of my tips and tricks and stuff. Any questions on that? Okay. I know we've gone a little bit over, and we actually missed our sponsor as well. But I hope you got a lot out of this session today. We're going to stay here. We have this room until around 12 o'clock. You're welcome to stay. Let's chat. Let's network. Let's get to know each other. We would love to send out a survey afterwards to find out, what do you want to hear next? What do you want to do? Do you want to present something for the group? We'd love your feedback and start to understand what some of your needs are as well. And if you want, again, to lead some of the conversations, that'd be awesome. I do want to get some lunch and learns. It's really not a lunch and learn. It's more like a meetup or something that we just have an open Zoom or an open team session over a lunch hour that you can just come and drop in. I can't tell you, as a board, we chat, Darcy, how many times is it? Every 3 weeks or once a month? And in those meetings, we share information. There's about 10 of us on the call. We share information that we heard, we saw, and we learned a lot of other things like that. NetSuite, did everybody know that there was a NetSuite lab that was last week downtown Toronto? Yes? Lots of people shaking nodding their heads. Okay, good. I found out because we had a board meeting and we chatted about it. And somebody said, hey, who else is going to this? It's like, oh, that's good to know. So it's good to share information. It's good to share, experiences. Some of us went on the 23.2 release before others. We shared a couple of things. Hey, this is what I saw. This is what they saw. Look out for this, maybe. It's a good sharing of information. We would love to have that as more of a, even if that is a monthly thing that we can do, I think that's great for our membership. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any questions? Anybody on the phone?
Mark, I will send Lisa's I'll send Lisa's document along with the survey.
Fantastic. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Darrell. Yep, we can do that. All right, great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Okay.